You're not likely to hear this at your regular doctor's appointment, but let me be honest with you. If you've stopped masturbating as you've gotten older, your body might already be going through changes you don't even realize. And no, this isn't about something dirty or inappropriate. This is real, physical, honest-to-goodness truth about how your body works. And the impact of ignoring this truth, well, it can be more serious than you might think. It doesn't just affect your sex life. It can influence your brain, your heart, your sleep, your immune system, and even the way you feel about yourself. My name is Dr. Mohit Kara. I'm a urologist and men's health specialist, and I've spent over 30 years helping people just like you older adults from all over the country understand how the body changes as we age, especially when it comes to intimacy, hormones, and long-term health. One of the biggest and most overlooked problems I've seen is this: as people get older, many quietly let go of their sexual health. And when that happens, they lose a vital part of their overall well-being. Now, here's something that may surprise you. Masturbation isn't just something left over from your younger years. It's actually one of the most powerful natural tools your aging body still has. It helps keep your hormones balanced, supports brain health, protects the prostate, and even lifts your mood. If you've stopped or never really started, then the cost to your health might be greater than you think. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through exactly what happens inside your body when you stop masturbating in later life. What I'm about to share might completely change the way you look at your health and yourself from this moment forward. Before we dive in, if staying sharp, independent, and healthy matters to you, I invite you to subscribe and click the little bell, so you won't miss important advice that's tailored just for people like us. And if what I'm saying so far is striking a chord with you, feel free to type the number 1 in the comments. If not, type 0. Your feedback helps me share more of what really matters to your health. Let's start with the first and perhaps most overlooked effect of not masturbating as you get older. It's what can quietly happen to your prostate and urinary system. When I first started practicing urology over 30 years ago, I didn't expect so many patients to open up about something so personal. But time and again, I had men, especially those in their 60s, 70s, and beyond, sit down and tell me they had simply stopped engaging in any kind of sexual activity. One man in particular stands out in my memory. He told me, "Doc, I just figured I didn't need that part of my life anymore." He was in his early 70s, fit, bright, very put together, but he had started waking up 4 or 5 times a night just to go to the bathroom. And he had no idea why. What he didn't know, and what most people don't realize, is that regular ejaculation, even through masturbation, plays a key role in keeping the prostate healthy. The prostate isn't just a passive little gland. It's a living, working part of the body. It produces fluid, it expands and contracts, and it needs regular use to stay in good shape. When there's no stimulation or release, the fluid inside can become stagnant. That can lead to inflammation, swelling, and pressure affecting everything from urination to sexual performance. You might notice a heavier feeling in your lower abdomen, a weaker stream, or that uncomfortable, nagging sensation that your bladder is never quite empty. And those aren't just annoyances. They're signs your body is struggling. What's more, this kind of congestion in the prostate can quietly turn into something more serious like benign prostatic hyperplasia, or BPH, which affects nearly half of men over 60. If it's left untreated, it can lead to urine retention, infections, and even require a catheter or surgery. That same gentleman I mentioned earlier, he eventually needed surgery to relieve the pressure, something we might have prevented with just a few simple changes earlier on. Regular ejaculation helps flush out old fluids, keeps things flowing, and reduces the chance of buildup. In fact, studies show that men who ejaculate 21 times or more each month are far less likely to develop prostate cancer than those who don't. Now, just to be clear, this isn't about trying to turn back the clock or chasing youthful fantasies. This isn't about lust. It's about function. It's about using what your body already knows how to do to protect itself naturally and simply. When you stop masturbating in your later years, it's not just a matter of missing out on pleasure. You may be inviting in pain, inflammation, and a gradual loss of one of the most basic human functions, urination. I've had patients become afraid to leave the house because they didn't trust their bladder. I've seen proud, capable men lose sleep, lose confidence, and become anxious all because of something that could have been managed with regular, private self-care. And yes, the mental toll is real too. When you start planning your day around bathroom stops or wake up every few hours during the night, it starts to wear on your sense of freedom. It's not just about your prostate, it's about your independence. But here's the thing, what begins with the prostate doesn't end there. The next impact goes deeper, reaching your mind. Because when masturbation disappears from your routine, your brain can feel the difference sometimes in ways that are harder to notice at first, but even harder to reverse. Let's talk about what happens to your mental clarity and focus when this simple act is removed from your life. Not long ago, a man in his late 60s came to see me. He wasn't complaining about his prostate or even about feeling tired. What he said, though, really stayed with me. "Doc," he said, "I just don't feel like myself anymore. I walk into a room and forget why I'm there. I lose my train of thought halfway through a sentence. I used to be sharp. What happened to me? It's a question I hear more often than you'd think." Now, yes, some changes in memory and focus are a normal part of aging. But what many people don't realize, even those who've read every health book or tried every supplement, is that your brain is deeply connected to your sexual activity. That includes masturbation. Here's what actually happens. When you engage in self-pleasure, your brain releases a combination of chemicals that are essential for your mind. We're talking about dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, natural substances that help with memory, concentration, mood, and emotional balance. These aren't just feel-good chemicals. They play a protective role in the brain. They help keep your nerve connections strong, improve blood flow to the brain, and reduce cortisol, the stress hormone that, when left unchecked, can damage brain cells over time. But when you stop masturbating, especially over a long stretch of time, your body produces fewer of these helpful brain chemicals. And the result? You may begin to feel mentally sluggish. You might have trouble focusing, feel less motivated, or find it harder to think clearly. It doesn't hit you all at once. It creeps in little by little. One day it's forgetting someone's name. Another day it's wondering what day of the week it is. Before long, you might start doubting your own mind, and that's when fear can take over. I've seen people fall into anxiety or depression, not because their brain is failing, but because it's not getting the stimulation it needs. In men especially, a drop in sexual activity can speed up the decline of testosterone. That's the hormone that not only affects libido, but also helps with memory, drive, confidence, and a clear sense of identity. When testosterone drops to low, everything from decision-making to motivation can take a hit. And while it's true that testosterone levels naturally decline with age, regular sexual activity, including masturbation, can help slow that drop. In fact, some studies are now suggesting that a lack of sexual activity in older adults may be linked to early signs of cognitive decline and, in some cases, even dementia. Now, I'm not saying that stopping masturbation causes something like Alzheimer's, but what I am saying is this: when your brain goes too long without stimulation, connection, and the natural chemistry that intimacy brings, it loses some of its strength. It starts to fade. And here's the good news. You don't need a prescription or expensive therapy to change that. Sometimes it begins with reconnecting to your body in the most natural way. Because when your body is engaged, your brain wakes up. It remembers its rhythm. It remembers how to feel sharp again. But mental clarity is only part of the picture. There's something else that can begin to slip when self-intimacy disappears, and it's often harder to recognize because it happens so slowly. I'm talking about your emotional balance, your mood. This can be one of the most subtle, yet most damaging effects. It doesn't always show up with loud signals. More often, it feels like a quiet dullness, a numbness that sneaks in until even small joys start to fade. Many people assume it's just part of getting older, that feeling of being a little disconnected, not quite yourself. But the truth is, there's often a deeper reason, and it's one that few people talk about. When you stop engaging with your body in an intimate way, when you stop touching yourself, even gently, your emotional world can begin to shift. That's because masturbation is not just physical. It's emotional. It's personal. It's a private act that reminds you that you are still here, still alive, still worthy of attention. I've seen it happen many times. Someone loses a partner or simply starts believing that sexuality has an expiration date. Weeks pass, then months, and they grow quieter. They begin to pull back, not just from intimacy, but from life. Hobbies don't interest them the way they used to. Conversations feel like a chore. They sleep too much or not enough. Their appetite changes. Everything turns gray. And sadly, they don't always realize what's causing it. They blame themselves. They think it's just age catching up with them. But often, it's not. It's simply the absence of a connection they once had with their own body and the powerful emotional chemistry that came with it. One man, well into his 70s, told me he started feeling more like himself again after he returned to the habit of touching himself. Not for fantasy or escape, but simply to feel connected. It didn't just lift my mood, he told me. It reminded me I was still human, not just a body winding down. That's what I want you to understand. Masturbation later in life isn't about shame or lust. It's about caring for your emotional health. It's about reminding your body that it still matters, that you still matter. And now, as we continue this conversation, I want to take you one step further, because the effects of giving up self-intimacy don't stop at the brain or the emotions. They extend into something even more vital: your sleep. Sleep is one of the foundations of good health, especially as we age. And yet, so many older adults struggle with it, falling asleep, staying asleep, or waking up feeling like they haven't rested at all. One man I spoke with in his late 60s came to me after months of this exact problem. He looked worn out, pale, frustrated, like he was running on fumes. "Doc," he said, "I fall asleep just fine, but then I'm wide awake in the middle of the night. My body's tired, but I just lie there, staring at the ceiling." He tried cutting out caffeine, adjusting his bedtime, even using relaxation apps, but nothing worked. What most people don't realize is that sleep isn't just about being tired. It's a complex process, and one of the body's most powerful natural triggers for deep, restorative sleep is orgasm. That's right, orgasm, whether from sex or masturbation, releases a cocktail of calming hormones like oxytocin, prolactin, and endorphins. These chemicals help the body shift gears, moving you from tension into deep relaxation. At the same time, cortisol, the stress hormone that keeps you awake and alert, drops off sharply. Your breathing slows down, your heart rate becomes steady, and your muscles begin to truly let go. And the benefits don't stop there. Deep, quality sleep isn't just about feeling rested. It plays a huge role in your overall health. Without it, the immune system weakens. Cognitive decline speeds up. The risk of heart disease increases. Anxiety and depression become more likely. In older adults especially, poor sleep is also linked to falls, memory lapses, and a greater loss of independence. I've seen folks who once led active, joyful lives slowly pull back, not because of illness, but because they were simply too exhausted to function. And the saddest part? Many of them never connected the dots. They thought it was just part of getting older. That's the real issue. Too often, what we think is aging is actually the result of neglect, of ignoring what our bodies quietly need. If you're lying awake at night, mind racing, muscles tight, and the hours dragging on, ask yourself, when was the last time your body felt fully relaxed, fully at peace? Sometimes the answer isn't in a new supplement or fancy gadget. Sometimes it's about reconnecting with a rhythm your body still remembers if you give it the chance. But sleep loss is just one more piece of the puzzle. Because while all these affect prostate trouble, mental fog, low mood, poor sleep are hard enough on their own, there's another consequence that's even more physical. one that's tied directly to your strength, your balance, and your ability to move through the day without pain or discomfort. Let me tell you about a patient who described something I hear far too often. He was in his early 70s and came to me with complaints of mild urinary leakage and back pain that made it hard to stand for long periods. "It's strange," he said. "I feel like the base of my body is slowly giving out." What he was describing wasn't just aging, it was the weakening of his pelvic floor. The pelvic floor is a group of muscles deep in your core. These muscles support your bladder, bowels, and sexual organs. They're like the foundation of your house, quiet but absolutely essential. Most people don't think about these muscles, but they're working every day to hold things in place, to support movement, and to keep your nerves and muscles communicating properly. And here's the important part: regular masturbation helps keep these muscles strong and active. It's not about performance, it's about preservation. When you stop masturbating, those pelvic muscles stop engaging. Blood flow slows down. Tissue becomes stiff. Nerve response fades. And over time, that quiet stillness turns into weakness. That's when you start noticing the little things: frequent urges to urinate, a bit of dribbling after using the bathroom, trouble holding in gas, or even discomfort during regular activities. And I need to say this clearly: ignoring this part of your body isn't just inconvenient. It can lead to accidents, incontinence, and a loss of dignity no one should have to go through. I've had patients start relying on pads, special underwear, or having to always know where the nearest bathroom is. All because the base of their body, the very core, isn't getting the stimulation and attention it needs. And the longer it goes on, the harder it becomes to rebuild. That's what breaks my heart. So many people suffer in silence, thinking they're the only ones. But this is more common than you might believe. The good news: it doesn't take much to remind those muscles that they still matter, that you still care. And that gentle reminder can make all the difference in how your body feels and functions. But as physical as that consequence is, the next one reaches even deeper into your immune system, into your body's ability to fight off illness and stay strong. Let's talk about how stopping this simple act could be weakening your body's natural defenses without you even realizing it. Not long ago, a man sat across from me, looking a bit sheepish. When I asked him about his overall health, he shrugged and said that part of me is just retired. He was talking about intimacy, self-intimacy in particular. What he didn't realize, and what most people don't, is that sexual activity, including masturbation, has a real, direct impact on your immune system. And no, that's not a figure of speech. That's biology. When you're aroused, and especially when you reach orgasm, your body releases a surge of natural chemicals. Not just the feel-good ones like dopamine and oxytocin, but also immune-boosting agents. One of the most important is something called immunoglobulin, or IgA. It helps your body fight off illness. It's your body's first line of defense. When sexual activity fades from your life, so does the regular release of these helpful agents. It's like taking the batteries out of your smoke alarm. Everything might seem fine at first, but when something goes wrong, your body isn't as ready to respond. And I've seen the effects of this firsthand. Patients who've quietly shut down their intimate lives often find they're getting sick more often. They take longer to recover. Old aches and pains come back. Inflammation flares up. They don't always connect the dots, but their bodies are sending a message something is missing. This isn't just about avoiding a cold or flu. Your immune system is tied to nearly everything: energy levels, healing, mood, even how fast you age. I remember speaking with a woman in her 70s who had lost her husband several years earlier. She told me she hadn't touched herself in nearly 5 years. We had an honest conversation about how sexual activity can support the immune system. She decided to give it a try, not for desire, but for her own wellness. Months later, she came back for a follow-up. She looked brighter, more energized. "I can't explain it," she said, "but I feel more alive. Like my body's working with me again, not against me." That's not magic. That's biology. That's the body responding to attention, to care, to connection. But even more powerful than all of this is something that touches your very sense of identity. Because when you stop touching your own body, when you stop caring for it in that deeply personal, human way, you may begin to feel like a stranger to yourself. Let me share a moment I'll never forget. I was speaking with a man in his late 70s, a retired school principal. Sharp, thoughtful, once full of presence and purpose. But now, he seemed quiet, unsure. He told me, "I feel like I've just faded." And I've heard versions of that same sentence more times than I can count. Too often, it starts in silence. People stop touching themselves. Maybe they think they're too old. Maybe they believe they've outgrown that part of life. Or maybe they just don't feel connected to their bodies anymore. But here's what really happens when that physical connection is lost. You start to disconnect from yourself. Because self-touch isn't just about pleasure. It's about being present. It's about acknowledging that your body is still here, still worth paying attention to, still yours. I've seen this disconnection lead to emotional numbness, shame about aging, a pulling away from affection, and even a loss of motivation for self-care. People stop exercising, stop eating well, stop dressing in ways that make them feel good. Why bother? They think. This body doesn't feel like mine anymore. I once had a woman tell me that after menopause, she just stopped touching herself altogether. I didn't feel like a woman anymore, she said. And the less I touched myself, the more invisible I became. That word invisible cut deep. And she wasn't the only one who felt that way. I've had men and women alike tell me they don't even look at themselves in the mirror, that they avoid their own reflection, that they haven't felt seen, even by themselves, in years. But when you begin to reconnect with your body even gently, even privately, you reverse that slow fading. You remind yourself that aging isn't disappearing, that your worth didn't end with your youth. You begin to feel like you again, and for many, that is the most healing act of all. Now, as we reach the end of this journey, I want to bring everything together. Because while each of these 7 effects is serious on its own, when you look at them all together, you see a bigger picture. It's the man who plans his day around bathroom stops. The woman who used to radiate joy but now avoids being touched. The person who used to sleep soundly but now lies awake for hours, wondering why they feel so disconnected. And so often, they've been told that this is just part of getting older. But I don't believe that. Not for a second. And if you've made it this far with me, I don't think you do either. Because here's the truth, when you stop caring for your sexual self, when you let go of that part of your identity, your body starts sending out quiet warnings. Changes in your prostate, fogging your mind, mood swings, poor sleep, weakening muscles, lower immunity, a fading sense of self. These aren't just signs of aging. These are signs that your body, mind, and spirit are asking for your attention. I've seen people who felt broken and lost find new life just by giving themselves permission to reconnect. It doesn't require youth. It doesn't require anyone else. All it takes is a willingness to see yourself as still worthy of care, still worthy of presence, still here. Masturbation in later life isn't a luxury. It's a form of care. A reminder that you're not just surviving, you're still living in this body. You still matter. One man once told me, "I didn't realize how much I missed feeling like myself until I touched that part of me again." And that's what this is really about. Not just staying alive, but feeling alive. Not just getting through the years, but living them with presence, dignity, and joy. So, if you've forgotten this part of yourself, buried it, or judged it, I hope today's message reminded you, you are still here, still human, still whole, and you always have permission to come back home to yourself. If this resonated with you, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. Whether you agree, disagree, or have a question, your voice matters, and your story might help someone else feel seen.